Why smart people sound robotic on camera and how to stop. You know what I always find interesting and maybe a little bit sad? It's how the smartest, most articulate people can suddenly transform into robots the minute they're put in front of a camera. I've spent years working with executives and experts on their communications and preparing them for difficult media interviews, and I've seen it happen countless times. Picture this. You're having coffee or you're in the break room with a colleague and they're telling you about their work, this upcoming project they're working on, and everything makes perfect sense. Then you see them present at a meeting or they're in front of a microphone and suddenly they're leveraging synergistic opportunities and optimizing stakeholder engagement paradigms. Whew, what happened to the real person who was just there a minute ago? I think I know why this happens. When we're feeling nervous or we feel the pressure, we reach for what we think sounds professional. We've all sat through so many corporate presentations and we've seen press conferences. And so somewhere along the way, we've internalized this weird robotic language as the right way to communicate important things. But just think about the last time someone really influenced your thinking or taught you something valuable. I bet they didn't sound like a press release. They probably spoke to you like a human being. I often tell my teams, when I'm putting my kids to bed at night, I read them a bedtime story. I don't read them a press release, and that's purposeful. The irony is that all this corporate speak actually makes us sound less credible, not more. I have an example from a recent training session. Someone was preparing to explain changes that they were implementing in their company, and their first attempt was this. We're implementing strategic initiatives to optimize operational efficiency going forward. What? I asked them, how would you explain this to a friend who was over for dinner? And their response was, we're just finding better ways to get work done. That's it. That's the whole thing. The meaning didn't change, but suddenly it was clear and it was relatable. Here's what I find really interesting. The more expertise someone has, the more likely they are to fall into this trap. When you know your subject deeply, there's almost a fear that speaking plainly somehow diminishes your expertise. But think about somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? He could explain quantum physics and black holes to an elementary schooler. That's not dumbing down, that's actually mastery. So let me share something practical that's helped many of my clients and executives that I've worked with. Before any important communication, take 5 minutes and do what I call a language audit. Actually write down the key phrases you're planning to use. And for each one, ask yourself, would I use this phrase if I were explaining it to a friend or a family member over lunch? If the answer is no, you've probably found some robot language that needs translating. Here's another example from a recent training session I was doing. A tech executive needed to explain a system outage. And the first draft included phrases like, we experienced an unexpected disruption to our service delivery infrastructure. After our language audit, it became, our servers went down for 2 hours. We found the problem, we fixed it, and here's what we're doing to prevent it from happening in the future. Same information, but now it actually means something to the audience. Here's another practical technique that I teach. It's the explain it twice method. First, explain your point using all the technical or corporate language you think you need, and then immediately explain it again as if you're telling a story to a friend. Almost always, that second version is clearer and more compelling. Keep that. Let me give you 3 specific phrases to watch out for because they're usually signs you're slipping into robot mode. The first one is going forward. Going forward. Just say when. Is it next month, next year? Be specific. Engaging with stakeholders. Who? Who is the stakeholder? Customers, employees, investors? Say that instead. Taking this opportunity to. You're probably about to say something rehearsed. Stop and rephrase. Here's a powerful exercise I use with clients. Record yourself explaining your topic, but in 3 different ways. The first time, explain it using your usual work language. Second time, explain it again as if you are talking to a 12-year-old. And then finally, explain it to a smart friend in a different industry. 2 things happen. One is that middle version, the one for a 12-year-old, often has the clearest structure. The final version usually has the most natural language. And when you combine those 2 things, those 2 qualities, you've got clear, professional communication that importantly is going to connect. Let's talk about handling technical information because this is where people often struggle. You don't need to strip out all the technical terms. That's not the goal, but build a bridge to them. Here's the formula. Start with plain English, then introduce the technical terms. So for example, our servers went down. It's what we call a system infrastructure failure. Got it? Now you've connected your audience's understanding to your technical language. And when you're preparing for any public speaking, try this 3-step process. 1, write out your key points in the most straightforward language possible. 2, look for any words or phrases that feel like they came from a press release rather than a conversation. You'll know it when you see it. 3, replace each one with how you'd naturally explain it to someone that you really respect. And here's a pro tip. I do this all the time. Record yourself practicing, but don't watch it immediately. Wait a day, 24 hours. Then listen while you're doing something else, driving, walking, putting the dishes away. You will instantly hear the moments where you slip into corporate speak because it'll stand out against your natural speaking rhythm. Remember, the goal isn't to dumb things down, it's to clear things up. So every time you catch yourself using a corporate phrase, ask yourself, what am I actually trying to say here? The simpler version is almost always stronger. I'd love to hear your experiences with this. Have you caught yourself going into robot mode when you're under pressure? What phrases do you catch yourself using? Share them in the comments because, sometimes the best way to break these patterns is to laugh about them together. Thanks for watching. And remember, you already know how to communicate clearly. You do it every day. The trick is keeping that skill when the pressure is on.